Hi everyone, Raji Narayan Singh here, transgender activist, author, and actress. So, first of all, I hope everyone had a fabulous Christmas 2017. And I cannot believe it's going to be 2018 in a few days. My God, time goes so fast. Anyway, I'm getting ready to go out to dinner. You see my shimmery dress? This is my belated Christmas dinner. I have a good friend for over 20 years, Sean Halt, and we always do this. Traditionally, we go to a nice restaurant for Christmas dinner. Last week we were supposed to go and it had to be postponed, so we're going today, a day after Christmas. Hey, better late than never, right? But I had to share this with you before I go. I had an experience over the weekend. I would call it a pretty spiritual experience, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, I really do feel it was a spiritual experience. I got to share with you all. So, I had a fabulous weekend. I mean, it was busy. Saturday, I was invited to a party. I call my this friend of mine my transgender activist sexy mamacita sister, Jess Marie. She had a Christmas party at her home, and it was a Christmas party slash fundraiser for LGBTQ homeless youth. It was a success, and we all had a fabulous time. And actually, she asked me to help out, so I got there a little earlier, and then I was probably like the last one to leave, really. Yeah, I stayed, some of us stayed to help clean up, but we all had a good time. So I got to meet a friend of hers, more than a friend of hers. He is her padrino, which is like her spiritual guide. He has the gift of prophecy. He is psychic. He can communicate with like the other side. And so she had told me about him, and I think vice versa. She had told him about me, but we finally got to meet each other. So at the end of the party, it's only a few of us left. We're all kind of sitting around, and he turns to me and he says, "Your grandmother is coming through. And she wants you to know that she's around you a lot and that she has a special love and affection for you." And he says, "I think it's your father's mother," which made sense to me because I didn't know my mom's mom. She had passed away before I was even born. So, it made sense that it would be my father's mother. And he says to me, he says, light a white candle for her sometime. Try and connect with her because she is around you and she wants you to know it. Well, this is the second time that I've gotten a message like that. About 20 years ago, this psychic friend of mine, Neil Cortese, he has the gift of prophecy and he can kind of like communicate with the other side. He said almost the same thing to me. We were at dinner, eating a good Italian dinner that he made for a group of us. And during the dinner, he turned to me and he says, "Your grandmother is coming through, and she wants you to know that she loves you very much and she's around you." Well, in that moment, it was profound for me, and, I was touched. But then I kind of just like, I, I don't know, I kind of was, I would say, like, disconnected from it. And I'll tell you, this is the second time. I think I better take heed, right? Wouldn't you say? I mean, two psychics telling me the same thing. Well, I have memories of my grandmother, but I was pretty young when she passed away. I was about 7 when she passed, 6 or 7 when she passed away. And the last memory that I have of my grandmother is that my family, my father and mom, took my sister and I to Trinidad for vacation for the Christmas. And we were there 21 days. We had a great time with the family. So we're at the airport getting ready to head back to the United States. And my grandmother was sitting and we were waiting for them to call us to board the plane. And my grandmother calls me over to her. And I walk over and I'm standing in front of her and she grabs me so hard and she starts crying uncontrollably, saying, that she loves me. And she's like, I'm never going to see you again. I'm never going to see you again. And she took her orny, which was like, it's like a veil. A lot of the older women in Trinidad of East Indian descent, when they went out into public, they would cover their head with an orny. It was like a light material, like see-through scarf type thing, and they would cover their head, and it's called orny. So she had one of those on, and she pulled the orny over her face, and she started crying uncontrollably and saying she was never going to see me again. And I remember my dad getting mad, and he's like, Ma, like, come on, stop that. What are you doing, Ma? Like, like we're in public. Like, why are you acting this way? And anyway, we came back to the States, and this was the end of December. And my grandmother died like January, February of that year, the next year. So literally like a month or two later. So she knew. She knew in her soul. And I remember I was in the living room. My mom got the call. And I remember my mom hanging up and she walking into the living room and sitting me down and telling me that my Aji died. And that's the word for grandmother, Aji. And that's what my sister and I called her, Aji. And she said, that Aji had passed away. And I cried. I was upset and I was sad. And I remember my dad going to Trinidad for the funeral. And he was sad. And that was one of the very few times in my dad's life that I saw him cry. And, it was a sad time. But then I guess because I was so young, I kind of disconnected from it. So I have the memories of my grandma, and this is something I found out actually when I got older as an adult. My grandmother left me a piece of land. I don't have it. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into it. That's a whole a whole other video. But my grandmother was a very, very hard worker. The history of East Indians in Trinidad is that many of them came over from India as indentured servants to work in the sugarcane fields. And my grandmother, along with a lot of my aunts and uncles and relatives, did that. They worked in the sugarcane fields to make a living. She would be up at like 4 in the morning and out in those fields working. And I remember the bottom of her feet, there was calluses. Because a lot of them back then, they walked barefoot. And, to think that she had it in her heart to leave me a piece of land that she, had worked so hard for. She felt that connection with me to do that. That was so special to me. Um, so I have a connection with my grandmother, but it's like, I don't know, after this weekend, it's becoming even more profound. Like, I'm taking heed. I'm like, I'm realizing that, wait a minute, this woman, my grandmother, is around me and she loves and cares for me deeply. So that's not it. During the day before I went to the party, everyone that went to the party bought a dish. So I picked up some Jamaican patties to take, but I also wanted to take some roti, some dal puri roti, and some curry goat. So I went by a Trinidadian Indian store, and they know me there, and the lady was playing this Trinidadian radio station. So I looked at her and I said, what station is that? So she's like, oh, you can go online. There's a few of them. Some of them play the soca music and the calypso. Some play the chutney, or it's a mixture of all. Then she said, there's the Indian, like classical. Oh, and by the way, chutney is Indian music of Trinidad. It's the Indian music of Trinidad. But then there's the stations that play like the traditional Indian music, like that would be from India, and the religious Indian music. And a lot of there's artists in Trinidad that they're East Indian descent that do the traditional music. But anyway, so she wrote down the stations for me, and I was like, oh, I got to check this out. Well, the next day after Jess Marie's party, which is Sunday, Christmas Eve, I was invited to a Christmas party. Really more like a Christmas dinner. And so I'm getting myself ready, and honey, I was tired from the night before with the party, but I was getting myself together, and it popped into my head. Oh, the Trinidad radio station. Let me see if I can find it. So I went and Googled Trinidadian radio station, and a number of them came up, and so I click on one, and I'm walking away, and the first song that plays is a song that my father used to always sing when my sister and I were growing up. This song represents my father to me in many ways. And for years, I've been trying to figure out what that song is. I didn't even know who the artist was, the name of the song. And I'd never heard it since those days when my dad would sing it. I stopped in my tracks. Now, you all know that listen to my videos and follow me. I'm quite an emotional person. And literally, this brought me to tears. I put my hands up to my face and I was bawling. And I turned around and I'm like frozen looking, towards the computer, listening to this song blast and fill my apartment. I mean, it was like, oh my God, like, Dad is trying to connect with me. And, I'm standing there frozen, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you got to get the name of the song. Like, so I ran to the computer. I'm trying to look for the name. They didn't have it up on the screen, the name of the song that was playing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I saw the artist is Mohammed Rafi, famous Indian singer from like back in the day. He's gone now. But when I tell you so many beautiful Indian songs from Mohammed Rafi, and I said, oh, my phone. I grabbed my phone and I recorded like the tail end of the song because I was like, well, at least if I have it, I can try and, figure out what the song is. So anyway, I Googled Mohammed Rafi, and it took me to a link on YouTube he has so many like classical Indian songs and love songs, but I still can't find this one. And so anyway, like I said, I taped a little bit of it, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'll play it for you just so you can hear it. When I tell you, I was frozen. Oh, you don't understand. That song is my father. Like and it was just, I guess some people could chalk it up to a coincidence, but to the core of my spirit, I know it was my dad. I mean, you know, it's all timing. I could have clicked 5 minutes later and I wouldn't have heard the song. The station just randomly picking a number of Trinidadian stations online. I picked this one, and this is the first song that plays. If my Aji, my father's mother, and my father aren't trying to tell me something, oh my God. And to you all, this is just a song. It's nothing probably to you all, but to me, this song represents my dad in so many ways because, like I said, as my sister and I were growing up, like he would always sing this song. And so it's just, it's times like these that really, God, are so comforting to me to know that, we lose our loved ones. Like they're not in the physical anymore, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. They're still around and they try to connect with us and the love is still there and it's still strong. They say we are living energy inside these bodies. And I remember when my dad died, my mom said that the house, that my sister and I grew up in, I mean, my mom is still in that house. She said the electricity was going haywire. She'd turn off a light and come back on, or the lights were flickering. And, it makes sense. I mean, if we are vibrational energy and we don't have these bodies anymore, to communicate, like electricity would probably be like one of the best ways or the easiest ways to try and communicate. So yeah, she said that went on for a few weeks after he died, um, with the electricity going haywire. Yeah, it's just so comforting to know that although our loved ones pass on, family and friends, people that touch our lives, they're not here in the physical anymore, but they still live on and there's still that strong connection and they try to communicate with us. So I will light a white candle for my Auntie now. I will light it for my dad and you know, um, I just had to share this with you all because there's no way this could be coincidence. It's spiritual. It's from the divine, and for whatever reason, they wanted to touch my life. And I almost forgot. Saturday was the 13th anniversary of my dad's death. He died 2 days before Christmas in 2004. Powerful. Love, peace, and blessing, guys. Have a fabulous rest of the holiday season.